Hi, and welcome to our weekly reflection on this, the first Sunday in Lent. Now, I don't know whether you flipped pancakes on Shrove Tuesday or received an ash cross on your forehead on Wednesday, but once again, we find ourselves at the beginning of this important season, a season for many of fasting, for examining our lives and preparing ourselves for Easter. I increasingly find value in the different seasons of the church calendar, perhaps particularly Advent and Lent, when we're encouraged to slow down and seek to draw closer to God. However, all too often in my experience, it seems difficult to slow down and find that different focus during this season. Indeed, I've observed that Lent can easily actually become an even busier time for many of us, with more church services to plan and attend, at least 2 highly recommended Lent devotional books to read, and of course the prerequisite extra weeknight out for the Lent study group. Now, I'm not saying any of these activities should be avoided. On the contrary, they can be so helpful. But I am saying that they probably ought to be instead of, not as well as, all those other activities that make up our often already very busy lives. Last week, I visited Wooler in Northumberland, where the United Reformed Church have set up the Wooler Warm Hub. It was great to be there and chat with Fliss and the team running the drop-in, and to chat with those attending as well. And whilst I find it extremely concerning on one hand that due to inflation and fuel poverty these warm spaces are actually needed in our society, I also find it a real encouragement that these spaces have often been created by churches, many of which are happening in our own network within RM. And through last week, as I thought a bit more about Lent, I came across a blog written by my friend Stephen March, where he spoke about the phenomenon of warm hubs or warm spaces. And he wondered what other societal needs exist, what other kinds of spaces might be beneficial across our country. It struck him that one very real need is for slow spaces. I love that. Slow spaces. Stephen went on to comment that our contemporary pace of life is often frenetic and frantic. We rush from one thing to the next, never feeling like we have enough time. Even in our downtime, we're often double screening and overloading ourselves with information, sights and sounds. The Mental Health Foundation suggests that 5% of our population have a generalized anxiety disorder. This is even affecting our children. Amongst those aged 6 to 16 in England, 1 in 6 had a probable mental health condition in 2021. That's up from 1 in 9 in 2017. Clearly, the way we are currently living is not good for us. As Stephen's thoughts developed, he offered Mark chapter 6:31 as a kind of blueprint for us as we seek to discover and enjoy these much-needed slow spaces in our lives. And I'd like to offer these 3 elements from that verse as we move into Lent as a blueprint for us to find those quiet spaces. Come with me by yourselves, said Jesus, to a quiet place and get some rest. Firstly, Jesus said, by yourselves. We're rested and refreshed when we're alone or with a small group of those we love around us. Have we even become scared of being alone with God, with no books, no resources, no podcasts, no worship tunes in our earphones? And next, Jesus says, to a quiet place. Noise really doesn't help us rest. It's hard to find peace in the hubbub of normal life. If we're to be restored, we'll have to find that empty space. Screens switched off, distractions minimized, interruptions prevented. Finally, Jesus says, come and get some rest. Stephen helpfully comments here that rest is not actually the ultimate goal. We're not called to live a life of restlessness. Rather, we need to rest in order to be able to work well and in a healthy and sustainable way. The goal is a balanced life of work and rest, something enshrined in God's wonderful pattern for human flourishing by the idea of Sabbath. So come by yourselves to a quiet place and rest. We need to learn to slow down, folks. I do hope for each of you, as I desire for myself, that amidst the meeting together, amidst the Lent courses and amidst the usual pressures of work and family life, that this season of Lent we'll be able to carve out some slow spaces, and that they'll provide us with some meaningful, wholesome, and life-giving interactions with God. Stephen's blog concludes, "There was a popular phrase I remember from my youth: live fast, die young, and have a good-looking corpse." That phrase comes from a book by Willard Motley. But from a Christian perspective, Stephen would like to see that rewritten, and I agree. He would like to see it rewritten as live slowly, die well, have a beautiful soul. May you be blessed and refreshed as you find slow spaces this Lenten season.